Well, I'm here at the ARC Festival. I'm calling it a festival because a lot of people seem to be enjoying themselves, but it's quite an incredible atmosphere. And I've managed to round up a few people and managed to find Baroness Claire Fox, who is here. Claire, thank you very much for coming to talk to me. So what does this mean to you?
So I think when I was invited, anything that calls itself the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship or Citizens, I immediately thought, well, I don't know if I am one of them. Am I a responsible citizen? But actually, I read all the bump about it, and one of the things I really liked was that we are faced constantly bombarded with negativity about apocalyptic visions in relation to the environment.
Oh, God, yeah.
We know there are genuinely real wars.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of us are affected by things like cancel culture, but you do get to a point where, you know, if you listen to a lot of people, you'd think that everything that has happened in the past was barbaric and everything's dominated by slavery and colonial barbarism and all human beings are terrible. And what the ARC, I suppose, initiative is all about is telling a more positive story so that actually humanity doesn't see itself as the problem, but it sees itself as the solution. I thought that was a very interesting idea. So they've done a remarkable thing here, which is they've gathered together people from all around the world. It's invitation only, so I'm glad to be here. It's an attempt at building a new set of institutions, ground up. Says the old institutions have run out of steam, a lot of the political parties. We know that. GB News is a start of, isn't it? It said the media needs a new voice. It built itself from the ground. That's what ARC's trying to do. And I suppose I'm from the Academy of Ideas. We've just had our big Battle of Ideas Festival, which GB News are involved in. And it's an attempt at building a new political movement, a movement for free speech, including ordinary people. Ours, by the way, was not invitation only.
No, of course.
It was a bit more of a kind of proletarian version of this. But nonetheless, I think all these new initiatives are key.
Yeah, and how does it compare to the Battle of Ideas? Are you feeling rejuvenated with some of the things that you've heard?
The thing about the Battle of Ideas was that it was absolutely ram-packed. Attendance was up, thousands of people, all ages, all social mixes, all ethnicities, and we didn't have a checklist on any of those things. They just came because they are the public. We weren't standing there counting. You just looked out and you thought, oh, it's the public, with every possible opinion on display. And I think it indicated a sense of urgency that people have about trying to both not just understand the world, but take control of it. You know, rather than sitting at home and shouting at the telly, they felt that they wanted their voice to be heard. And we run it as a series of public conversations. I suppose the contrast with this is that we as the attendees don't get to speak, whereas at the Battle of Ideas, half the time is given over to the audience. Ours was a bit anarchic. We've had beautiful classical music playing here.
Oh, lovely.
Absolutely. A full orchestra. Who did we have? Liam Halligan's band, the Hooligans. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't get more mad Irish folk. But I'm not in any way disparaging this, because I think everybody needs to say things are not good enough and we need to build anew. And I really like the atmosphere here that says we should not be overly fatalistic and think that we can't change things. We can. And that's very important to me.
I would agree with you. Now you're a Baroness. You weren't somebody who was popular with the House of Lords. I know initially you kind of were saying that it should be abolished. What's it like in there? Are you enjoying it?
Enjoying it's overstating it. I still think it's an anti-democratic chamber and should be abolished.
Oh, really? Even though you're in it?
Yes. I know that makes me a hypocrite, but, you know, we'll live. It's a platform.
Yeah.
And I think that if you feel that very strongly about lots of issues, like I do, you take the opportunities that you have. I take it quite. It's a lot of work, because I didn't realise how influential the House of Lords was in making laws. And so I have to read lots of legislation. I'm not a lawyer. I'm also not in a political party, so I haven't got a load of staff doing things, so I have to read it myself. But I think that it gives me an opportunity to say some of the things which I know ordinary people are worried about that nobody else would dare say in the House of Lords. Well, if I can give voice to that, it means that I can make what I consider to be important points about how the law should not be framed so that, for example, you're bringing in hate speech legislation every 5 minutes, you try and ban things all the time, that the law actually has real consequences on real lives, and there should probably be less but better laws. We need fewer laws, but they should be better, shorter. Instead, whenever the government or the opposition thinks they've got a problem, they think bring in a new law, and I don't think that's good. So I say those kind of things, and I suppose I speak in a voice that isn't usually heard.
Well, Boris, who got you in there, he's joining GB News. But what do you think of that?
Well, I don't know whether Boris got me in there. Obviously, it was Boris's regime.
It was doing his.
I think that from Boris number 10's point of view at the time, just to clarify that, remember Brexit was a big issue, and the Red Wall had rebelled, so they brought in Gisela Stewart and Kate Hoey and myself, and in a way we were kind of the left Brexiteers, and they wanted to acknowledge all those Labour Red Wall voters. So I assume that's the motivation for why I got in there. Now Boris is coming to GB News. Well, he's nothing if not a force for energy. He's going to bring... People will be interested to see what he's got to say, a certain dynamic. There will be controversy over it. I have been very critical of his, what I consider to be letting down Brexiteers and making a mess of it. But as far as I'm concerned, he's an important political figure. The important people in politics are always going to have something to stir up our intellectual lives. I mean, what we need is to be taken seriously. Or the viewers and the listeners of GB News are not stupid. And they want to hear a wide variety of opinions. They don't, by the way, just want to hear conservative politicians. They want to hear a range. So they can make their own mind up, but they're not frightened of loudmouths or troublemakers, and they like hearing people who've got strong opinions, because it helps them decide, well, I disagree with Nana. What's she talking about? They're not frightened to say that to you, but it helps clarify. You're never patronising to them. And I don't think Boris was patronising to them. So I think in that sense, he'll fit right in.
I think it's a good thing as well that people disagree and then see that where there's a disagreement, there doesn't have to be a scrap afterwards, and we don't have to hate each other or send evil messages to each other or call each other names.
Cancel each other.
We can listen to disagreement, and I think it's such an important narrative.
By the way, I think it's really good that GB News is here with all the political parties, and I think it shows that despite those people who I think disgracefully have tried to cancel GB News by using the corporate power, the power of big money, to lead an advertising ban, that actually advertisers are now starting to advertise. More of them should, but you as a channel have basically said we're not being cancelled. That's not happening anytime soon. We're just going to have more viewers, more listeners. But the more you are at all of these different events, the more people can see you're part of the media landscape. And I, by the way, go on BBC, LBC, Sky. It's important, right? Anyone with a voice should do that. GB News is part of that media landscape, which is why I'm also always pleased to be on here as well. Well,
I really appreciate you coming to talk to me, Claire. It's so good to talk to you. And I'll get you on my show in the studio. You can be my political spotlight one week.
Thank you. I'd love that.
Thank you so much. That's Baroness Claire Fox.